When he was living with these aliens, they created a virtual reality in which he could walk and was not burned up, and he was young again. And he cited that as seeing, that's the way it should be. We can make a virtual reality where everybody's happy and there's no more suffering. But what he didn't mention was the whole idea of that episode of Star Trek, that pilot episode, was that in the end, the captured crew of the Enterprise, they fought hard to escape because they said they'd rather live in the reality with the suffering than be slaves. But Gary,
yeah, exactly, and they were going to be slaves. That was the difference. They weren't going to be put in virtual reality and live a perfect life. They were going to be slaves. So they had a reason to fight, but even the fight seems to have lost some of its balls, because the reason why they said nobody could ever go to that planet again is because they knew how contagious the whole idea of living in virtual reality would be. You dumb ass.
That out. He tries to cite an episode of Star Trek that actually works against his entire idea of virtual reality.
Well, I just argue, anybody who thinks it works again, just watch the episode. Like I said, if it doesn't bring a little tear to your eye, then I'd say we are not the same species of animal, okay? If you don't see some beauty in it, then you're an ugly person.
Because he's fucked. Virtual reality, I mean, to try to escape the horrors of the world by putting yourself in a fucking pod and plugging yourself into a computer, and he makes entire series, lengthy series on this absurd idea. It is absolutely retarded. And then he says he wants to basically force
retarded again. So that's you're still using the same argument. Retarded. You're not using a logical argument. You're just using rhetoric, just pointless, meaningless, ad hominem style rhetoric.
People to go into it, in the sense that either they go into it, or if they stay on the outside, he wants to enact laws that makes it eventually that where the people that decided to remain outside would go extinct. And he tries to justify this fascist idea by saying, well, if the majority votes for it, that's a democracy. So if the majority...
Yeah, well, like I said, the majority has made decisions in our lives. It's decided that might doesn't make right, that physical strength doesn't mean you own the world. And money, you can exploit people if you're rich, but you can't exploit your physical superiority. So we've made a decision right there. But society makes lots of decisions. And I've justified my point of view on this. I said, look, we can certainly do virtual reality without the restriction I placed on it. But my point is that if you leave the outside world intact, that outside world will be a menace to the virtual world. And secondly, the whole point is to salvage the exploited and the abused in the real world. And if that's not going to be the mission, is to rescue the world, its consciousness, then there's no point in doing it, in my opinion. If it's going to be a donut or tasty cake for the rich, then fuck it. And I'll say that again. No point in it. I'm not going to vote for it then.
Votes that the people that remain outside virtual reality cannot have children, therefore the species will go extinct out there, the free people, then we should be subject to that vote. Gary, democracy doesn't work that way. That's called fascism.
Yeah, well, you can keep saying democracy doesn't work that way, but that's exactly how it works, okay? A consensus, or the majority makes a decision, and the rest of the people have to live with it. That's how democracy works.
Don't vote. The funny thing is, and then later you get pissy, and rightfully so, about the vote for Proposition 8 in California. You made it a clear...
Yeah, and my argument with the vote in California is the fact that they create this sloppy direct democracy where people don't have to be accountable for what they're voting for. I would make voting public, number one, if they were going to do that. If people are going to vote on propositions, they should wear that on their sleeve, so to speak. We should know who voted for what. But beyond that, it should be a representative democracy, and there should be a good and complete argument in a representative body where the assholes who would vote for this could be called exactly what they are, which is bigots. They could be called it loud and clear. No misunderstanding. My representative would be in the body, and he would point to those other people going to vote for it, and he would say, "You, sir, are a motherfucking bigot." That would be a good argument. A fair argument. Before you pass legislation, there should be a fair fucking argument. That's my point.
Your point that you thought it was fucked up that people were voting on human rights like that and voting them down. But this is after you say that people should be subjected to not having children on the outside of virtual reality because the majority votes they shouldn't. Well, Gary,
yeah, because the majority would perceive a threat to the whole point of doing virtual reality. There's, like I said, if you're not going to fix a problem in the real world, then I don't see that as a legitimate use of virtual reality. If it's not going to fix problems, then there's no point in doing it.
This will ever happen. People are not going to volunteer to go into virtual reality. And if some ever did, if they actually developed that and some ever did, there'd be a lot of us that would stay out. And you know the beauty of it all is, while you're inside virtual reality and you think you've enacted all these laws where we can't breed and we can't do this, we're going to come up to where your pod is and kill you. And
yeah, that's great. So you just prove my point. You just prove that the crazies can't be left out there because they're murderous, crazy assholes. Oh, fuck. God damn, you're funny.
Kill everybody in virtual reality. So it's just us again. So your fucktarded ideas will then go the way of the dinosaur. That's all that's going to happen. You're not going to be able to control us when you're sitting in a fucking pod, living in your little Christian heaven that you're going to create for yourself.
Yeah, how's it going to be anything like the Christian heaven? I'd love to hear that. I mean, the Christian heaven, all I've gotten so far is pearly gates and fluffy white clouds, and I think you hang out with kids or something. I don't know. So how exactly would virtual reality be anything like that? Silly man.
We're going to sneak up on you and kill you.
Exterminate!
So it'll never work. And then while we're talking about you, Gary, you know, another thing, I wanted to originally argue with you about this whole idea you have, this socialist idea about seizing wealth from people because you think life's unfair. That's your whole premise in this world. You are like a walking suicide bomb.
Well, whatever. Yeah, the idea that I think fairness is a good concept and we should be applying it wherever we can. Yes, that's right. Nature's not fair. That's right. We can be. I've made that point. That's almost like one of them Martin Luther King statements, you know. Nature's not fair, but we can be. I mean, makes sense to me, asshole.
Doesn't have the balls to commit suicide or something because you hate life so much you want to see all life go extinct to end the suffering.
Well, then I guess I wouldn't be proposing virtual reality. I just say I want the world to go extinct and I'm going to kill it.
And in this, you say life should always be fair, so therefore legacy wealth and inherited wealth and power should be outlawed. It should be seized from people. Well,
yeah, it's a silly concept. I mean, you can't. It's a especially silly concept when people are going to do this little finger pointing that you're going to do in the next couple of minutes. It's a ludicrous concept under those circumstances.
You know what? That's never going to happen, Gary. It's never going to happen. See, I'm not going to...
yeah, well, whatever. There's class wars coming, Bubba. Right now, I mean, the way the Congress is, with the president and the Congress that we have now, I'm sure we're going to go back to a $2 million limit on inheritance before the taxes start rolling in. So, whatever. And eventually, people are going to figure it out eventually. We don't need legacy wealth. We don't need to be run by it. We don't need it. We don't need these maggots feeding off of productive human labor.
The point with you because it's stupid, because you can't be arguing because you close your ears to everything other than what you believe.
Right, so I made a whole friggin' alphabet of videos, all the way up to the letter Y. I mean, I haven't done the Z video yet, but all the way to the letter Y, and you say I still haven't given you enough of an argument. I mean, come on.
The point is, you will never seize my wealth. You will never seize anybody's wealth. I will get my inheritance.
Yeah, whatever. You can say it ain't going to happen. It's going to happen. There will be a class war, and the rich are going to lose it this time.
I will pass my inheritance and my wealth down to my son. You will never stop that. So it doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say that you'll never stop what's going to come. All right, the people have wised up. People know they're getting used. People know that 3/4 of the value of human labor is in the hands of people who never did a day's work in their life.